You know the strategy works. You've back-tested it, you've seen the results. The numbers don't lie. 70% win rate, risk-reward of 1 to 2, a proper edge documented and repeatable. But here you are, 3 months later, watching your account bleed out because you can't stop moving your stop loss, because you doubled your position size after 2 losses in a row, because you entered that trade 15 minutes before your signal actually triggered. The strategy isn't broken. You are. Not broken in some permanent way. Broken in the way every trader breaks when they confuse knowing what to do with actually doing it. This is the gap that separates the millionaire from the struggling trader. Not intelligence, not better indicators, not some secret patent the pros are hiding from you. Discipline. The ability to execute the same boring actions in the same boring sequence regardless of what your emotions are screaming at you to do. You already know this. Every trader knows this, but knowledge changes nothing. You can understand discipline intellectually and still click the buy button 3 minutes too early because the candle looks like it's going to run without you. You can believe in patience and still exit a winning trade at $50 profit because fear whispers that it's about to reverse. You can preach consistency and still blow 20% of your account on a single revenge trade because anger demands immediate satisfaction. The truth that nobody wants to hear is this. A mediocre strategy executed with absolute discipline will make you more money than a brilliant strategy executed emotionally, every single time, without exception. The trader with the worse system and the better psychology wins, always. The market doesn't reward your analysis. It rewards your ability to follow your own rules when following them feels impossible. This is where you lose, not in the charts. In the 3 seconds between feeling something and clicking something. Let's talk about what actually happens in those 3 seconds. You're watching your position, it's up $200. Your plan says hold for the target at 500, but something shifts inside you, a tightness in your chest, a voice that sounds like reason but feels like fear. What if it reverses? What if you give back these gains? What if this is as good as it gets? Your hand moves toward the mouse. You tell yourself you're being smart. Taking profit is never wrong, right? Conservative, disciplined even. You close the trade at $200. 30 minutes later it hits your original target, $500. You just cost yourself $300 because you couldn't sit still for half an hour. This happens because you don't actually trust your strategy. You trust it enough to enter the trade. You trust it enough to risk money, but you don't trust it enough to let it work. The moment real dollars are on the line, a different part of your brain takes over. Not the part that back-tested and planned. The part that just wants to stop feeling uncomfortable. The part that will trade long-term results for short-term relief every single time you let it. Here's what nobody tells you about discipline in trading. It has almost nothing to do with willpower. Willpower is what you try to use when you're fighting yourself. When you're white-knuckling through a trade, trying not to check the chart, trying not to move the stop loss, trying not to add to a losing position. That's not discipline, that's internal warfare, and you will lose that war because willpower depletes. Emotions don't. The disciplined trader isn't fighting anything. They've built a system that removes the fight entirely. They don't stare at the chart debating whether to take profit early because they've set their take profit order and walked away. They don't struggle with position sizing because they calculated it before the trade and they don't deviate, ever, not once. Not when they're up, not when they're down. Not when they're feeling confident or when greed whispers that this one is different. The rules are the rules, not guidelines, not suggestions, not flexible frameworks that bend to accommodate feelings. Rules. You think the millionaire trader has some special relationship with money that makes discipline easier. You're wrong. They have the same fear you do when a trade goes against them, the same greed when it goes their way, the same temptation to break the rules when breaking them seems justified. The difference is they've realized something you haven't yet. Their emotions are irrelevant to their execution. Completely and totally irrelevant. They can feel afraid and still hold the position. They can feel greedy and still take the planned profit. They can feel angry after a loss and still follow their rules on the next trade. The emotion exists. The reaction doesn't. This is what you're actually learning when you learn to trade. Not chart patterns, not indicators, not market structure. You're learning to create distance between stimulus and response, between what you feel and what you do. That gap, that tiny space of conscious choice, is where every dollar you'll ever make in trading lives. The trader who can pause in that space is the trader who gets paid. Everyone else is just donating to them. So how do you build that gap? How do you become the trader who executes regardless of emotion? You start by understanding what you're actually building. You're not building discipline, you're building identity. You're not trying to control your emotions, you're making them irrelevant. And you're not fighting your psychology, you're redesigning it. The first principle: you cannot discipline your way out of a bad system. If your trading plan requires you to constantly override your instincts, your plan is broken. If following your rules feels like torture, your rules aren't actually aligned with how you're wired. The disciplined trader doesn't white-knuckle through trades. They've designed a system so aligned with reality and so thoroughly back-tested that following it feels easier than breaking it. Not because they're stronger, because their system is smarter. This is where most traders fail before they even begin. They copy someone else's strategy without understanding their own psychology. They try to scalp when they hate watching charts. They try to swing trade when they need constant feedback. They set stop losses so tight their own breathing moves them, then wonder why they keep getting stopped out. You need a strategy that matches your actual tolerance for uncertainty, your actual patience level, your actual time availability, your actual emotional makeup. Not the trader you think you should be. The trader you actually are right now, today, with all your flaws intact. But let's say you have that. Let's say your strategy actually fits you. Now comes the part that separates the consistent from the occasional. You need rules that cannot be interpreted, not flexible guidelines, binary rules: yes or no, in or out, trade or no trade, no gray area, no exceptions, no "I'll just this once." Because the second you allow interpretation, you allow emotion to hijack the decision. The disciplined trader doesn't debate, they check the criteria. If all boxes are checked, they trade. If one box is empty, they don't. It's not a conversation, it's a checklist. Here's your checklist. You need it written down, not in your head, on paper, on your screen. What has to be true for you to enter? What has to happen for you to exit? What's your position size? What's your maximum daily loss? What's your maximum weekly trades? What do you do after 2 losses in a row? 3 losses, 5 wins? You need answers to these questions before you're in the heat of the moment. Because in the heat of the moment, you're not thinking clearly. You're feeling clearly. And feelings lie about probabilities. The millionaire trader doesn't make better decisions in the moment. They make better decisions once in advance when money isn't on the line and emotion isn't screaming. Then they execute those decisions mechanically. They're not smarter in real time. They've removed real-time decision-making almost entirely. They've automated discipline through pre-commitment. You decide before you feel. Then when you feel, you've already decided. The decision is done. You're just executing. Now here's where it gets deeper. You can have perfect rules and still break them if you haven't addressed identity. Because every action you take is a vote for the type of person you're becoming. Every time you follow your rules, you're voting for the identity of a disciplined trader. Every time you break them, you're voting for the identity of an emotional trader who says one thing and does another. You think you're just moving a stop loss. You're not. You're declaring to yourself that you're the kind of person who moves stop losses. You think you're just taking one revenge trade. You're not. You're reinforcing the identity of someone who trades emotionally when hurt. This is why small discipline wins compound faster than you think. It's not about the money from that one trade you held properly. It's about the identity you're building, the trust you're establishing with yourself. Every time you feel fear and still follow the plan, you're programming your nervous system to believe that you can be afraid and still execute. Every time you feel greedy and still take your planned profit, you're training yourself that you're in control of your actions regardless of what you're feeling. You're not trying to stop feeling. You're proving that feelings don't control you. The breakthrough comes when you realize that you don't need confidence to follow your rules. You need rules to build confidence. You don't need to feel disciplined to act disciplined. You need to act disciplined to become disciplined. You're waiting for motivation, for the right mindset, for the day when discipline feels natural. That day comes after 1,000 trades where discipline felt unnatural, but you did it anyway. You build the identity through action, not the other way around. The mindset follows the behavior, not before, after. Let's talk about money for a moment. because this is ultimately about money. You're here to make money, but you're approaching it backwards. You think the goal is to make money. It's not. The goal is to execute your process perfectly. The money is a side effect of perfect execution. The amateur focuses on the dollar amount the professional focuses on whether they followed their rules. The amateur celebrates a profitable trade where they broke their stop loss. The professional is angry about it because they know they got lucky and luck doesn't compound. The professional can lose money and feel good about the trade if they executed their plan, because they know that perfect execution over a large sample size is the only thing that produces results. They trust the math. You don't. You're still trying to will individual trades into profitability through hope and anxiety. The market doesn't care about your hopes, it doesn't care about your needs, it doesn't care if you need this trade to work because you lost on the last 3. It doesn't care if you're feeling confident or desperate. It does exactly what it does, completely indifferent to your psychology. The only thing you control is your execution. That's it. That's the only variable in this entire equation that belongs to you. Not the outcome, the execution. So that's where 100% of your focus goes. Did I follow my rules? Did I execute my plan? Did I manage my risk? Yes or no? That's the only scorecard that matters. Here's the part that sounds too simple to work but works anyway. The 3-breath rule. Before you enter any trade, you take 3 deep breaths. Before you exit any trade, 3 breaths. Before you adjust anything, 3 breaths. Not because breathing is magic, because those 9 seconds create the gap between stimulus and response, between feeling something and doing something. 9 seconds is enough time for the prefrontal cortex to catch up to the limbic system, enough time to ask, is this my plan talking or my emotion? Am I executing my strategy or reacting to discomfort? Most of your mistakes happen in the rushed space between impulse and action. The 3 breaths slow you down just enough to choose instead of react. The disciplined trader is slow, boring, mechanical. They do the same thing the same way every single time. They don't have dramatic wins. They have consistent wins. They don't have exciting trading days. They have unremarkable trading days that add up to remarkable trading years. They're not passionate about individual trades. They're systematic about aggregate performance. They've traded intensity for consistency. They've traded excitement for execution. They've traded the emotional roller coaster for the slow compound of small edges repeated thousands of times. They make more money not because they're smarter, because they're more boring, more patient, more willing to do the same simple thing over and over while everyone else is chasing the next shiny strategy. You want the secret? There is no secret. There's just this: know your rules, follow your rules, track your rules, refine your rules, every day, every trade, without exception, without negotiation, without emotion entering the equation. You do this long enough and one day you wake up and realize discipline isn't something you're trying to have. It's something you've become, not because you fought yourself into submission, because you built a system that made discipline the path of least resistance and you walked that path until it became who you are. So where do you start? Today, right now, with the very next trade, not with a complete overhaul of your entire approach, not with a new strategy, not with more backtesting or more indicators or more screen time. You start with one rule, one single rule that you will not break for the next 20 trades. Not 10, not 5, 20. Pick the rule you break most often, the one that costs you the most money, the one you know you shouldn't break but break anyway. Maybe it's position sizing, maybe it's moving stops, maybe it's trading outside your session times. Whatever it is, that's your rule. For the next 20 trades, you follow that one rule with absolute consistency. Everything else can stay messy. 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 But that one rule becomes non-negotiable. Track it. Keep a journal. Not complicated. Just date, trade number, and a yes or no. Did I follow the rule, yes or no? Not mostly, not except for this one time, because, yes or no, you're building evidence. Evidence that you can be the person who follows their own rules. Evidence that discipline isn't some personality trait you either have or don't. It's a skill you build through repetition. 20 trades of perfect execution on one rule. Then you add another rule. Then another. You're not trying to. Then you expand. The losses will still come. You understand that, right? Discipline doesn't prevent losses, it prevents stupid losses. It prevents the losses that come from breaking your own rules. It prevents revenge trading your account into oblivion. It prevents doubling down on a losing position because your ego can't admit you were wrong. But rule following losses, those are just the cost of doing business. Those are your tuition. The market charges everyone. The difference is whether you're paying for education or paying for the same mistake over and over because you refuse to learn. When you lose following your rules, you get stronger. When you lose breaking your rules, you get weaker. One builds confidence in your system. The other erodes trust in yourself. One moves you toward long-term results. The other keeps you trapped in the cycle of emotional trading that burns through accounts and dreams at the same rate. The disciplined trader doesn't avoid losses. They avoid meaningless losses. They lose cleanly, according to plan, with their stop loss hit exactly where they set it and their position size exactly what it should have been. They lose and move on. No drama, no spiral, no revenge. Next trade. This is the long game. Trading is a long game. The psychological edge you're building compounds over years, not weeks. You're not trying to make $1 million next month. You're trying to become the kind of trader who can make consistent money over the next decade. That trader isn't built in a weekend. They're built in the tiny moments, in the 3 breaths before a trade, in the decision to close the platform after hitting your daily loss limit, in the discipline to sit on your hands when there's no setup, in the patience to let a winner run when every cell in your body wants to take profit early. You're building something more valuable than money. You're building self-trust. You're building proof that you can make a plan and execute it, that you can feel fear and act anyway, that you can feel greed and still stick to your rules, that you can lose and not spiral, that you can win and not get reckless. Every time you choose execution over emotion, you're becoming someone different, someone who understands that discipline isn't the enemy of profit. Discipline is the only path to it. The market will still be here tomorrow, and the day after, and 10 years from now, it's not going anywhere. You don't need to force anything. You don't need to prove anything today. You just need to execute your plan, follow your rules, build your identity one trade at a time. The money comes to the trader who can do boring things consistently, not to the trader with the best strategy, to the trader with the best psychology, to the trader who figured out that the edge isn't in the charts, it's in the mind. You already know what to do. Now go be the person who actually does it.